Hello there, this is AnY Brony and welcome to the 41st episode of Crepuscularity Discuss. Today we will take a look into the future and talk a little bit about what the 5 to 6, depending if the troll behind the couch makes an appearance or not, think where the Brony fandom is going. So, today with us, as usually in the last period of time, Amalealicorn. Welcome, Amale. Then, of course, Byter.
Blarg. Then
Unova.
Howdy.
And last but definitively not least, DrWolf. Welcome back, DrWolf.
Greetings and good evening, everyone. Good to be here.
And with a few special, maybe with a few special appearances today by the mage. Maybe.
She can't actually hear you. She'll appear when she wants to.
She will appear when she appears, yeah. It's a little bit like Where's Waldo.
Yeah.
So, where are we going to start, fandom-wise? Or let's start with, I guess, DrWolf, since he is the most guestiest guest, since the four of us are regulars, more or less.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's Sing! It's Sing from the Addams Family.
Ah, okay. Anyways, a couple of days ago, I actually uploaded a video about many of my thoughts on what I think is going to happen in the future of the Brony fandom. I've got people who are asking me, do I think that there might be a 5th generation MLP one of these years down the line? Where do I think the current generation is going to go? And honestly, I think that there's still so much potential that you can do with this current generation because there's so much more you can explore with these characters and with the world and how they can develop it. And I'm hoping that they'll keep that going for a few more seasons at the very least, but it really depends on how much quality they can keep in the show at the same time. I'd really not want to have the show keep going long after they've lost their creativity. I know I've seen a number of other shows that go down that line and they get boring really quick. But I don't see that happening with MLP anytime soon, but we'll see. As for a 5th generation, I don't know. I could see a couple of different possibilities happening there. Either Hasbro picks up enough of the hint and understands how things work that they might want to consider making the 5th generation a little more friendly to the Brony fandom overall, which could be a double-edged sword even in and of itself, I should say. Because if you're catering to your fans, then there's a lot of problems you can run into really quickly. Fan service does not always make for good TV. And while it certainly would make a lot of people happy to see their favorite background characters suddenly get all this attention, it depends on whether the characters by themselves can really carry the show in the spotlight. And we have yet to see whether or not they can actually pull that off.
There's a few things you say in there which are kind of, at the moment, I'm not sure are totally defined, i.e. You say the show will continue to, I don't see the show losing its creativity anytime soon, though I'm not sure how you say that the show is going to maintain creativity, since I don't really know how creative the writers will be in the future. And the other thing is obviously that the show is not, it's not just the creativity that is why there is a fandom there in the first place. You know, it may actually be because the things tell stories rather than just being creative.
Well, kind of goes in between. Make good stories, you need a certain level of creativity, but then again, creativity without a direction in form of a story doesn't really go anywhere either. So, yeah, I guess both is necessary. But one thing DrWolf mentioned with the infamous pandas, it is a thing. Is it really Generation 5, or we are kind of already seeing this tendency in current things with season 3 and Equestria Girls, where there were a lot of shout-outs for the fans. And as Dr. Wolf said, the shout-outs, for some people, it was like, oh my god, there is vinyl! And for other people, it was like, yeah, rendering! But it is basically pandering or fan service in itself. I'm using it as a general term, not at a... I believe there have been a few podcasts back. Have there been the...
Yeah, we did a podcast on that one. Yeah. And
yeah,
was the...
service
I think... pandering was one of them was sexual, and I think I think it was fan service was the sexual one, and pandering was just general, I think.
Okay, then I stick with the term pandering, even so it's kind of overused as well. But okay, pandering in itself is not a bad thing. This should not be the topic for today. Yeah, it is not a bad thing, but it cannot carry the show, as Dr. Wolf said. It is the cherry on top, but when everything below this cherry is not good, you will not enjoy the cherry either. So, yes, this is a trend that has already started, but it is still, at least in season 3, it was still kind of working. I haven't really a problem with it. In Equestria Girls, I have to admit, because I had so low expectations, or I was enjoying the movie, but on a very casual level, on a very it's a fun flick, and there I could enjoy the pandering, but it should not become more. And I believe at G5, I guess there will be one for sure, simply because they are picking up let it be 20 years down the line, but they pick up alt, not content IDs, franchises every now and then, because, they have an idea how to reinvent it and stuff, but they will sooner or later come back to My Little Pony. So I say a G5 is more or less guaranteed. About the direction,
that really just depends on who they get to do it.
The difficult thing, at the moment we're sort of playing around a lot. Like first, if we're talking about the future of the show itself, there's a lot of things that really aren't much on the table. Like when we talk about a G5, what do we mean by that? Do we mean it's like they leave the show for several years and then come back with a complete new redesign and complete new story, setting, and characters? Or do we mean it's Equestria again, it's the same MLP ponies? Yeah. The thing is, there may very well be a G5, but it's I would say it's a really difficult guess to say how far along the line G5 will be. And the first thing first is how long will G4 last, and how long will G4 run, and what will happen to G4, and how will the fans respond to it? I think is the first question.
It would be interesting to see whether or not they eventually could try to do a spin-off of G4 before bringing out a completely new G5, but again, up in the air.
Well, I think like a good idea for us analyze the future of the fandom is to see the current endings of certain fandoms. It's Breaking Bad just ended. Its last episode aired. Do you know what's going on with its fandom?
Well, Breaking Bad didn't really have a fandom as so much as just people who like to watch it. I mean, there's no one out there making tons amount of Breaking Bad arts, and well, I'm sure there are a few people, but no one's like, oh my god, Breaking Bad fandom, chat rooms.
Yeah.
As far as I know.
The starting point, the starting point is actually just looking at the Brony fandom of today, really, and the Brony fandom of today is, it's predicated on the people say, wow, the show for little girls is actually, it's pretty decent. It's interesting. It's innovative. It's creative. And the fandom isn't just people who sit down and watch the episodes. They're people who go out and actually make a lot more than just what the show originally was. I mean, we're the analysis to sit down just to talk about the breaking down the show forever, but a huge part of the fandom is more just the artwork and the music and the fanfics, I guess.
Yeah.
So
I think if we really wanted to try and get it, you can finish.
It's the lag, so I was going to fill the air, but I was saying, yeah, it's different from, say, just a show that people watch. The MLP fandom has always been more than that because people have been doing more than just watching it.
Yeah. I think if we really wanted to try and figure out how the fandom would react when this current generation ends, a good place to look at would be like how we deal with the breaks in between seasons, because I mean, look at us right now. I mean, we still have the fandom going pretty hard. I mean, we have promise of more to come, and it's been confirmed. But even before that, we still had everyone together in chat rooms, talking, still making new art and such. But at the same time, people have also moved on to other things, like Attack on Titan has gotten really big amongst the bronies during the season break.
Attack on Titan? I've never heard of it. Cough, cough.
I caught on with Gravity Falls and stuff, so I did my duty.
Yeah, I must admit, like a lot of the fans who I often interacted with have moved on to other pastures in MLP. Partly, I think, regardless of like season 3's length or quality, it's more just that we're only 13 episodes and there's a long gap to it and a long gap between it and season 4. The current numbers of bronies, it's a bit hard to really necessarily ascertain, but just from looking from Google Trends, it's about it's lower, at least a lot lower than it was. The BronyCon hype for people looking for the term brony was nowhere near as high as the prior BronyCon. So, I don't know, it seems to me, at least from personal anecdotes and from Google Trends, that the total number of bronies has decreased as people have spent a lot of time either not liking Season 3 or, even if they like Season 3, waiting for it and waiting for Season 4.
So you mean
I
more
wouldn't
the
say that
active
we've
bronies, because or the hardcore bronies have become rare, because I would actually say the fandom is still growing and it is actually going into a sub-mainstream, if this makes any sense. It is still some kind of a deviant fandom, but okay, basically which fandom isn't? Even Trekkies or Star Wars fans are seen as deviant in the public eye, so we are still some kind of a deviant fandom, but it became the go-to fandom. So I have the feeling that it is still growing, but that the actual members, the newer ones, are more casual members. So they are not as hardcore as the fans from the first season. So
yeah, well, definitely. And like I said earlier, a lot of us who were past doing a lot of stuff have also started getting involved with different things like Attack on Titan and a bunch of other animes, which I can't recall the names of most of.
It's a bit hard to say, like, obviously, the most hardcore bronies, the content producers and whatnot, are the ones most involved with the show or involved with the fandom, whereas someone who just watches the content or watches just the show are indeed the most casual ones. And the people who are less vocal about it, the people who are just hangers-on in the background, are of course the people we are going to overlook. All I know is that, you can look at the amount of search terms of like the term brony or how much people search for Equestria Daily in Google, and the numbers are certainly down. So I can't say the casual audience has increased because just the general amount of traffic has decreased.
I would say that from what I've seen, the brony fandom is continuing to grow. And part of that comes from the fact that all the YouTube channels that have anything to do with the brony fandom are continuing to grow. And they're continuing to get more active and get more views and more subscribers. But even besides that, MLP is reaching new markets across the world. And there are new countries who are just picking up on the fact that there's this show that has this massive following, and people are starting to get curious in those parts of the world. And even more than that, I think that MLP is actually beginning to reach a broader age range of audience as well. I can see that the fandom is growing. It may not be as much in the hardcore, but I'd say that it is still growing, and from the trends I see, I think it will continue to grow, and come season 4, it's going to be having a bit more of a spike again because, like you said, there are some bronies out there who have moved on to other fandoms in the downtime between seasons, but a lot of them will come back.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Well,
yeah, I guess there's always this kind of hype when there's a new season, then it kind of gets more moderate over time, and when the next season comes, zack, we are up again. So I guess with season 4, the Brony fandom will be reaching a new high. That's my prediction.
Makes sense to me.
The trends, at least for the Brony fandom, is that for seasons 1 and 2, it was up, all the way till the end, pretty much. I think there might have been a little bit. It basically ends right about around Canterlot Wedding. It drops down a little bit, and then there's BronyCon that jumps right back up again. It goes back down again, and then it has a hump for season 3. It's decreasing before the end, and then there's again a little spike for BronyCon, and now it's back down again, back to 55% of the highest levels for the first BronyCon.
What is it? You have some kind of traffic numbers there, or
just
what are
my sources? I gone to Google Trends and looked for the term Brony. I also went and looked for some others like Equestria Daily and something, but like anything that has Brony in it, I think will be included in that. So the more Brony type stuff someone's searching for in Google, of course, if they're going through Google, they're available there via Google Trends, which isn't necessarily the best representative of it, because it should be just people searching what are bronies. It could just be people, it just the initial interest of what the term means, rather than people who are interested in the fandom. But you see, it at least correlates to how much interest the fandom is gathering.
Yeah, I guess it is a reasonable source to get some kind of...
It's a rough guesstimate, yeah.
But, yeah. To kind of throw out a bold statement in regards to the discussion, I actually... whatever comes with season 4, and I can also see a season 5, but I guess we can talk about this later. But the bold statement I want to throw out there is that I believe the bronies will never stop to exist. Because what I mean is, maybe the fandom as it is now will kind of go become part of the whole big internet, but not a kind of focused fandom anymore. But with all the memes, with the art styles that were all surrounding G4, I believe in a few years, right now it is still this, oh, you are a brony or you're not a brony, but in a few years people will simply be used to it, and there will people who still have fun drawing everybody as a pony and stuff like this. All the fiction that is out there now, that will be out there in 10, 20 years as well, and a good fiction will stay good fiction, and at some point it will be kind of become part of the general knowledge of people. Even people who are not bronies know about the phenomenon. So since the knowledge and the impact of season 4 kind of let its imprint, and so I dare to say that the idea of brony in the sense of G4 will not cease to exist, because it is now part of the general conscience.
Yeah,
what do you guys think?
What I think...
We've definitely got tons of shows who had fandoms that were really large, and even after they ended, they're still going. I mean, I love Kim Possible a lot, That's pretty obvious there.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, at the same time, we've also got, like, when was the last Monty Python movie made? And we still talked about it on, like, what, like 3 or 4 CBDs ago?
Yeah, 3 or 4 CBDs ago, the humor in MLP. It's a hard one to say. Like, I think the original garner for the show was indeed the fact that it could cater to all audiences. And it seems to me, at least from my feels, that season 3 and onwards is probably on a downward slope of pandering to the lowest common denominator with cheap slapstick humor. Though that is not necessarily going to be the true, because they've got contractual writers and they might change their path, who knows. But I feel at least that the original spark, or what can draw people to the show, is the quality of the show that could appeal to everyone. But at least I will agree with ANY that the fandom is a lot more than just the show. The fandom is garnered so much more meme status, so much more that you know, if you're a Brony musician, you aren't really inspired by the music of the show. You're more inspired by the big, huge Brony musicians, or the smaller ones who have, you know, who are also part of your community. So whilst people's passion generated by the show may decrease, people may still be inspired to form and be a community around the ponies because of their designs and what other people are doing.
Well, perhaps we should be starting up a conversation about what would happen when they actually do say that whichever season is going to be the last season, that they're going to officially stop the show after such and such season. What will happen to the Brony fandom immediately after that final episode?
One question
immediately after it.
Yeah. One question of difference from the prior seasons of MLP is, of course, prior seasons were not for the hub, that Hasbro didn't have its own channel that it wanted to garner. So how many IPs has Hasbro got, and how will it be able to continue using MLP, or will it cycle MLP out for a duration? Will it ever try to end before the hub ends? Will the hub actually officially close down MLP, or will MLP suddenly stop when the hub stops?
I could see possibilities of them starting either a spin-off show at some point and deciding that the original G4 really has run through its course and they don't want to keep the show going if it doesn't have that much possibilities anymore.
Yeah.
So they may have other shows still carrying on the torch, but for this show, for this current G4 show, eventually it will come to an end. Whether that's before the hub comes to an end, I don't know. But I'd be curious, regardless of whether other shows are still coming through, what happens when this particular show goes off, that it has its final episode, its final send-off? What's the first thing that would happen to the Brony fandom?
Yeah,
I believe it kind of depends. I see two cases there we probably have to think of separately. Case one is that, it is a scenario you described earlier as the one you hope this will not be the case, and I myself hope it as well, that they keep the show running until the cow is molten dry. And I believe in that case the fandom will already separate itself from the show. There will be at least the more hardcore-ish fandoms. They will focus on fan projects of every kind, being it images, music, animations, fictions. They will kind of move away from the show, probably still watch it, but not take it too hard anymore if the show should alienate its hardcore fans so much. So there will be a lot of kiddies like, oh, I'm a brony now, I'm watching the show, but in the end they are just watching the show for being a brony, and they did not become a brony for loving the show, which would be kind of inverse. And yeah, it would not be good, and I really, really hope we don't have to see this case. But even so, in this case, I believe that the fandom will, it will separate itself from the show, will start doing its own thing, but it will not cease to exist. Because what inspired the fandom in the first place will be still there. The other case, would be that the show keeps up on a high enough level to keep the fandom focused on the show, and then eventually, in 1 or 2 seasons, the show will officially end with a big high note, and story arcs will be concluded, and so on. And in that case, who?
If I could think about it, like if we look at like shows that have gone on for a long time, or things that have gone on for a long time, it would be something like Pokemon or Star Trek. You know, those things have very large fandoms, and those things have gone on for very long. But you know, a lot of, you know, if you think about Pokemon fans or Star Trek fans, certain ones, you know, watched up to the, you know, the last generation, or some have only stopped after, you know, the 5th Pokemon game. You know, they ended at Sapphire and they're not so interested in the new one. You know, as the show gets longer and longer and longer, you know, some people are going to lose interest, particularly if it's the same premise over and over again. You know, that if you have just a series like Digimon, like a distinct season plonk right in, then you just, you know, people are like that season, and they're fans of that season. But as the thing gets bigger, larger, and bloated, then there's going to be the fandom will divide itself up. You know, there'll be people, you know, like myself or whatnot, who like seasons 1 and 2, but all the rest is something that we don't particularly care about. If, you know, if it was bloated and the trend continued, there might be a season 5. Dr. Wolf, we can hear your phoniness. So I think, as the fandom gets larger, people will divide up into groups as they like particular parts of the show. And if the show moves into a new direction, you know, has a new set of characters, like a new main 6, whatever, or a new setting, you know, it goes to somewhere other than Equestria, where there's still ponies. Some people will like the change, some people won't. And, you know, both sets will be Trekkies or Bronies or whatever, but, you know, they are now divided because the show's content is becoming larger.
Yeah, go back to the Star Trek example. There are fans who are particularly fond of Deep Space Nine, of Voyager, with some people who say only the old Enterprise is a true Enterprise. So, yeah, there are also these sub-segments within the fandom, even though they all are called Trekkies, and they all go to the same conventions, more or less, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have Trekkie conventions.
As I said, these fandoms have multiple iterations and reincarnations. I think that's the best way to put it. And MLP may indeed have iterations and reincarnations or changes. So, just like them, they all are called Trekkies, but yeah, some like certain bits and some don't.
Going to like your Pokemon example, like remember at the very beginning of Generation 1 to Generation 2, there's like this worldwide phenomenon that's basically overtaken the entire world. Sort of like how MLP's kind of slowly increasing to that aspect of spreading around the world. But then everything just dropped to the point that we now have hardcore Pokemon fans that are right now playing up until this very day. And with the new 6th generations, looks like they're gonna make it more available to the fans of old and make it a lot more easier for like kids to like be competitive also, and create like an even larger community based on the accessibility of it.
When you talk about different iterations, like in the case of Star Trek, how some fandoms prefer one particular show over some of the others, while you find fans that don't really like that particular iteration as much as the other shows.
Sorry.
When that does happen, and I think it's very likely that that will happen, there will be future iterations of MLP, whether they be spin-offs or completely new generations. And there will be some who like the new direction and maybe others that don't quite so much, but I could see that the level of cohesiveness would start to deteriorate between the bronies. I mean, one of the things that really makes our fandom stand out so well is all this fan-generated content in art, in music, in animation, in stories, and so much else. If you start having different iterations of MLP with some fans moving on to this new show and other fans staying true to the original, you're not going to have as much cohesiveness and therefore not as many fan-generated projects, and we won't have quite that much of a niche anymore when that does happen. And I'd be curious to see how quickly such a thing would happen once we start getting new shows around MLP.
Yeah, one of the things that definitely makes our fandom a stronger one are how we can all just say, like, hey, you're a brony, I'm a brony too, let's be friends, and then we know that person the rest of our lives. But if that were to break down, it would turn off the appeal for a lot of people.
When someone else says they're a brony, it's obviously clear that they're a fan of G4, the main six, the same as I am. It's very clear that that's the starting point that we've both come from, or usually it is, that it's that particular pony design. Though, if we want to talk about like a slight lack of cohesiveness already, there are bronies who were fans of the prior generations. But they do also make fan content, like taking the main six and turning them into G1 ponies. And I don't see those things necessarily garnering as much traffic as they do as the current G4 majority.
Awkward silence.
Yeah.
I don't know, you guys have anything to say about the prior generations? I mean, there are fans of that, and whilst they weren't technically defined as bronies, they certainly probably have become part of our fandom, and they have made content of it. I've seen quite a bit of it around, but they haven't got the same...
The collectors, that's basically what they are.
It's not only the collectors. I mean, it's just sometimes people draw the G4 ponies, and they also draw G1 ponies.
Yeah, and I don't think so much of people nowadays who are like, I was a fan of G1, 2, and 3, so much as it was like, oh yeah, I watched that while I was a kid. That was really neat. So I don't really think we could say that there was a fandom. Like Buck Brony, he said he watched G1 when he was a child, I believe.
Who did?
Buck Brony?
Could be. He was here earlier. Maybe he can tell.
Yeah, he said it in his last video about the 5 things we didn't know about him.
Yes, he did. The 5 things or the 4 things you didn't know about me. Yeah, but then again, the thing is, sure, there are generation 1, 2, 3, and probably a lot of people have at least kind of switched in there at the time when they were in the right age, and yes, Buck confirms. But yeah, maybe even a bunch of them liked and enjoyed watching it on a regular basis, but there has not been this fandom thingy. And sure, people who enjoyed it back then and are now bronies and enjoy G4 as well, they have then nostalgia about, the good old shows, but it never really kicked off. None of the earlier generations, except maybe 3.5, who had an impact in form of nightmares, but none generation was so strong that it was possible to create this fandom. And even so, nowadays it is easier for a fandom to exist in which a bunch of old dudes enjoy a little girl show. There have been already in the 90s, there have already been, for example, Sailor Moon fans, males and older ones. So it was possible. Of course, it was more tricky, and you could not celebrate your fanness as you can it today. And it's harder to find people with the same mindset, but there have been the fans. So but none of the earlier generations was able to do it because, yeah, the whole power comes from G4. So I guess even though there are the generations before G4, I think G4 can be sort of the, yeah, what pretty much Star Trek was for the original series, for this fandom, the starting point on which all the new stuff is built on. I kind of can see G4 becoming this.
Yeah, not so much even just G4, but just the internet in general. I mean, it's made it much easier for us to communicate. I mean, this podcast, YouTube, Twitch, Google Hangouts.
True story.
Yeah. I think the current state of it is that it feels like G4 is the one that has struck gold the most for Hasbro. At least it's a style that seems to at least work for the most part, and Hasbro seems to be liking it. I might be completely wrong about that, but it would seem in future that MLP won't necessarily completely redesign the ponies. We'll have the same designs, but we'll have spin-offs and we'll have different arcs. Like already we have comic books, and some people read comic books, some don't. We have the Equestria Girls movie where they become humans, and some people like that, and quite a few others don't. So yeah, I think in future the show is probably going to stick to the core look at the ponies, which at least will be something that we can all relate to. But it will be in future, you know, people may not necessarily as relate to the whole Twilight being a princess and the arc of being a princessiness. You know, they may not really like that as much compared to just Twilight the nerd. So, you know, more people will focus on what parts of the show they like. They may be still cohesive in that regard.
Mm.
Though, what do you guys think of, like, I have seen some who are just decrying that the whole fandom will collapse, that it's over, that people are giving up and moving on. And certainly people are moving on, and the show isn't as good in a few people's eyes. But does that mean that the fandom is dead, or just the fandom is going to decrease?
They're throwing pandas at us.
Ah, I'm leaving the fandom. I guess for one thing, I'm not sure. Have you been kind of referring to the diversity in content? People like Crepuscularity, Tommy Oliver, and yeah, me do in the more recent history, or
if you want, we can go into that if you want. Yeah.
Yeah. For example. Or maybe we have Jax Blade, who also was like, hey guys, I'm still a Brony, but I will not make any more Brony content, and I believe he hasn't done a lot of content at all recently on his channel. So yeah, but when from my personal point of view, it is like. For me, it is not like that the fandom is dead or that I lost interest. No, I'm continuing doing my stuff. But yeah, I love, for example, Legend of Korra, so I watch it every week, and I love reviewing stuff. So I was like, hey, I'm going to review now Legend of Korra. I'm not a one-trick pony, and it's also, I talked with Tommy about this a lot, that, yeah, this kind of goes along with the question, future of the fandom. Sooner or later, the hype will end. Either be it because the show ends, be it because the show becomes crap.
Or the show becomes The Simpsons.
Yeah, exactly. The hype will end. I don't say the fandom will implode, will cease to exist. I don't see this coming rather quickly, rather soon. But the hype itself, the whole attention, the whole like bronies is being the thing now on the internet, will at some point quieten out. And yeah, on my end, it is a rather rational decision actually, that I was like, okay, I have other interests as well, and I'm just going to talk about those as well. It's not like, Iron Pony left a comment on one of my videos like, "Ooh, you all run out of ideas. You are so desperate. You have to talk about other stuff." And I was like, "Huh? What? I just enjoy more than one show. Shame on me."
Well, honestly, I think it's based on like the mindset of. Like if you're like doing an industry and you decide to like, ooh, I'm gonna go for the next fad. Like you're basically like selling out your pony audience for like a new audience. Like you try to transition that.
I think given the gap between seasons, the amount of new material for us to talk about is not really much there. I mean, it still speaks that there isn't a huge amount to necessarily talk about. It's a problem sometimes I hear from people about this podcast that we only have the 3 seasons to talk about, and we've covered most of the basics or the general themes in general already. We've covered the slice of life, the fact that the more elegiac elements to the show don't jive with the slice of life feel of the extra increased pandering humor. We've covered all that to death, and whilst we still try and come up with interesting topics and new directions, there's always a question, like not for other channels, but also for like the podcast here, that we started here just as a reviewing each episode, but there's no new episodes and the themes are already heavily talked over. What is there to talk over? So yeah, why not talk about other things? I enjoy reviewing, I enjoy analysis. I mean, I like the show, but there isn't necessarily so much to talk about.
True story.
Yeah. Well, it's because... yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, there are some reoccurring ideas and arguments even within the CBD by now.
A few, like Season 3 sex is being the big, huge one.
and also I tried to be the optimist.
5 different episodes.
Yeah.
Also me trying to be the optimist of the group and being like the most closer to the audience.
Mm.
Sorry, just since Devera just asked, no, you don't need to send topic suggestions to me. You can send them to the, I believe it's still an Aftermath Tumblr, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or to the Tumblr? I don't know.
You could send it to the Tumblr. You could send it to the Tumblr or in channels, I guess. I mean, we haven't really got that many suggestions, so... Yeah.
Or followers at all.
I don't think we've ever even mentioned that before. I didn't even know that existed until now.
We made one mention video.
You haven't heard about the Aftermath Tumblr?
Let me just share the link.
We are so professional.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, we have this Tumblr. So far, I believe it's called the Aftermath Tumblr. We should kind of expand it to a general CBD Tumblr, I guess. And yeah, there's a good point where you can send suggestions. Because if you send them to me, I really have a lot of stuff going on, and there's a reason why I kind of am not a regular part of the CBD anymore, because especially the organization is kind of a thing that has become too much for me, and there are many topics I don't have to say a lot to, or something I haven't already said, so I'm like... Yeah.
Yeah, in the topic of, like, I think at least for us, for analysis is based off the content. That we're very much tied to the original show, and when there's no new content, there's no real new developments until, more Season 4 spoilers or anything like that crops up. And that's why, at least on the analysis side, we're going to look at new things. Whereas if you're a musician, a fanfic writer, or something more detached from the show, they aren't really necessarily going to be affected by the original material.
Yeah. Well, I suppose in my case, I can continue analyzing the characters on where I think they should go given their past. And I've come up with a lot of episode ideas that way, and a lot of people like that I can continue writing for those characters, but again, that reaches beyond just what analysis is. you have to do only part analysis and part headcanons in order to make such things work.
Yeah, a lot of channels are headcanon channels. Lots of ones are idea channels rather than necessarily analysis. If you're just going to sit down and review the episodes, you have 60 episodes to get through, but it's quite a long slog to go through every single one.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm attempting to get through all of them myself, and maybe some point next year I will have completed that.
So you haven't watched through all the episodes yet, Dr. Wolf?
Say that again?
You haven't watched through all the episodes yet, Dr. Wolf?
No, I've watched all the episodes. I'm talking about actually releasing a video review of every single episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've completed all of Season 1, even though I haven't uploaded all of Season 1 yet. And I'm on my way through the first couple of episodes of Season 2 thus far, and eventually I'll get there. That keeps me busy well enough.
Yeah, because there's some bronies that still haven't yet watched some parts of Season 1 or Season 2. I'm a little serious about that.
Yeah, but the thing is, about episode reviews, also the reason why I personally don't focus on getting through the old episodes, and I'm still considering what else I can do to give talking about the older episodes a new spin. It is a starting point for everybody. Most people just start out reviewing episodes, but when it is not the current episode, it is for somebody like Dr. Wolf, who is capable of producing 3 videos a week. Sure, go to all the old episodes. But for someone like me, who only manages to get one higher quality video out there a week when it is going good, when it's going well, spending so much time talking about the old episodes that had already been covered by so many other people is, for me, something I'm like, sure, I will get there some point, but you can only bring so much new to the table when you talk about the old episodes, and yeah, that's kind of, not even the old episodes are so good as content to go on. That's something you have to get past. You have to find something else, like talking about fan content, talking about fictions, which is something I focus more on recently. Yeah.
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 It's been
that's a starting point for my monologue.
Yeah, for the most part, the Crepuscularity is discussed. The people we use have heard here is the ever-growing or burgeoning analysis community. Those who are breaking down the show. It's when it started, there weren't actually that many people making or writing reviews, or at least they weren't so well knitted together. But as time has gone on, we have grown and it grew into a fanciful community. But as the show has become there's such a huge gap. There's nothing new to talk about, and it's just more slapstick. It's not necessarily a great topic to talk about anyway. So for us, at least as the analysts, we can go on to new and different pastures. We all enjoy reviewing rather than necessarily being tied to the ponies. We are analysts first rather than ponies first. Whereas a musician, they're music first, but they still go by the pony motif.
Yeah.
Well, I think I have a very good question. Think back to like when you first started watching the show, or when you first started joining the fandom. Tell the people of the audience your reason for watching the show, or joining the fandom. And then, like, a few years from now, like, maybe 10 years, like, if the show's ended, and, like, the fandom starts ending, or, like, the show just ended, would you leave the show, would you leave the fandom because the show has ended, or will you leave the fandom because the fandom is dying and is very close to its deathbed?
I suppose that depends on whether you could ever really leave the fandom. As long as you have fond memories of the fandom, as long as someone brings it up in a conversation and you say, yeah, I remember that. That was a lot of fun. Would you
Yeah,
ever
I guess a better way to say it would be
fandom
you're
in the
no
first
longer
place?
active in the fandom.
Yeah, that's pretty much the thing, because the whole term leaving the fandom is kind of bullshit, if you ask me. What means leaving the fandom? That you delete all your accounts that are Brony related? That you delete all content? I mean, what?
You wipe your mind of all ponies.
Yeah, exactly. And I can probably say that I am a Brony for life, because not necessarily because I'm going to make these videos all my life long, but yeah, I am a Brony because I am part of this fandom of G4 and stuff that was spawned by it, and yeah, even if I become inactive, at some point I will not say, oh, I'm not a Brony anymore. That's gone. Yeah, it's more like that it will, the fandom will not end, it will kind of just fade out or get part of the overall mainstream. And I guess it's also what the members do. The members will not, the least members will actively leave the fandom, then just they will do less and less, but there will be a few people who, out of nostalgia, draw a few more ponies to listen to the old music, because, hey, there's awesome music. Why should I stop listening to it? Just because there are ponies? I mean...
Yeah.
Or even try to explain it to your kids a couple of decades from now.
Probably.
Yeah.
I think the big, huge draw point for a lot of people sometimes is just sort of like the conventions, and conventions can carry much longer after the people have stopped, you know, being hugely active about watching or creating content for the show, and the content will still be there. So after the show stops, eventually at some point, yeah, people will stop, have less reason to continue making content. But the fandom is more self-sustained because it's more just the ponies and their designs as a starting point than necessarily a great ode to the show's awesomeness. So yeah, I see people still going into the things and making the content.
Yeah,
Honestly,
at the same time, you can...
Honestly, like, I could say from, like, my experience, like, I'm honestly one of the people that that watched the show because, like, I heard about the Bronies. Like, when I heard about guys that were actually being, like, sentimental, were, like, not being, like, the negative connotation that I had of them being, like, warmongers or, like, people that just like causing violence for, like, women and the innocence of children everywhere, I was like, maybe this could restore my faith in humanity. And, well, the episode that I watched that really got me into the show was really A Friend Indeed, which was in season 2. I mean, I seen the first episode, and I really quite like it like every other show, but as I go into the episodes more and more, I just got more and more impassionate by the show, to the point, like, now I'm just as excited for, like, the new season as everyone else is.
Yeah.
My affiliations with the show has been simply that I am one who found it an enjoyable pastime to watch the first 2 seasons. And after the first season, I found some people making some content about it. And I just thought it would be a fun little diversion at season 3 to review each season by writing them down, given that English is not my strong suit. And when the show ends, if I feel the need to continue reviewing every episode, I will have no episodes to review. Though I now also have this podcasty thingy where I go and meet and talk with people about the show. So eventually I think after the show ends, I would run it for a few weeks, but you know, there won't be any new material, I know that. So the podcast would come to an end after there was no new stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
Though I am still working on that reviewiness, which is actually different, but I keep it quiet about it.
Yeah, by the time season 4 comes around, you finally reveal your season 3 review.
Yup.
The 1 episode review.
That's gonna be so funny when people get to see it. It's like, oh, someone already explained all those points before you, and you'll be like, ah!
Except it doesn't. It's not actually going to work like that. No.
He's going to tear Sleepless in Ponyville a new one.
Yeah.
Oh well.
My lips are sealed. They're all confidential details.
Oh, by the way, guys, Buck said, like, in the comments, like, my picture makes me look old, and I'm like, really?
Okay.
How do I look old?
Dum dum dum.
So,
I mean, I was 17 with that pic.
have you guys got anything?
Any particular aspects of the suspected future or some theories you guys still have? Some perspectives we haven't covered so far?
I think for me the difficulty is that it's such a huge topic, this one, that we first have to discuss what the fandom is and what the fandom means to people, and that is a huge area of things that it could be just people watch the show, it could be people just watch the content, and it could be people just make the content, and that's loads of different types of people. It's also what will the show be and what will it be to these different people, and this thing is something it's really hard to define and really hard to set forward in the future. We could say there's probably more seasons and they'll probably drag it out for a while, but obviously that won't tailor to a lot of people who just like a short, quick, cohesive burst of what they like. Whereas some will be tired, but some just like the cow being milked to death. So, I don't know, for me, we haven't really... It's really hard to say the future of the fandom because these two things are really hard to define. What we can say, at least, is the current state of the fandom is just there's a long gap and people moving on to other things within the analysis part.
No, even so, I wouldn't necessarily say that it is so difficult to define. I mean, we already covered that the fandom has a lot of sub-segments in a certain way with people who focus on different stuff, and I would say what basically makes the fandom a fandom is the fact that there is this thing all the people have in common, which is in this case ponies, and that there is a certain interaction, because without the interaction it's not a fandom, it's a bunch of people who happen to enjoy the same thing, but yeah, that's pretty much it. The fandom lives through the interaction of a bunch of people who enjoy the same thing. So somebody who only watches the show, sure, he can call himself a brony, but I wouldn't consider him a member of the fandom if he really only watches the show, is not doing anything else on the internet, not even liking or watching stuff. So the question is, when we talk about the future of the fandom, what will in future people do who have the common aspect of MLP and interact based on this aspect?
Yeah. The setting up of consequences, though, and who we're imagining as things are, like when we're discussing like the current demographics for the bronies, like all I know is that from personal anecdotes and vague statistics, I can't. When you talked about there's more casual viewers or casual bronies, ones who aren't so much into the content. I don't think. Do you have surefire stats behind that? I mean, I don't. I'm just saying that. Well, if you because earlier we talked about the current state of the fandom, and you said it was more casual, and I was like, well, what is that judgment based on? Is it personal anecdotes? Is it really good, useful evidence, or is it vague statistics?
Well, and how certain can we really be with any kind of statistics? Because even things like Google searches statistics, I mean, how many times are the hardcore fans going to have to search for Equestria Daily before they just bookmark it? I mean, how many of us have actually Googled Equestria Daily in the past month?
Googled it?
I do it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I only put in E and Q in the URL line, and it already pops up.
Yeah, and at the same time, there's also Bing growing, so who's saying all the bronies aren't moving to Bing as well? There are just a lot of things that we can't really account for in statistics unless we do like a massive entirety of the internet survey.
Yeah, so it's why I'm saying it's really hard to necessarily say, you know, when there's a discussion of this is what the fandom's current state is in, you know, like in the comment section, I wish I could point to someone and say, yep, look, here's the herd consensus, this is the, you know, the proper good source to show you how things are, but it really isn't, is it?
The problem is, where I take the statement from is kind of personal observations to people who claim to be new to the fandom and stuff like this, and I'm a cynic, and there's no politically correct way to, or an unoffensive way to describe where I take my ideas from, but it's really more an observation thing on my end when I make this statement. So it's a feeling I get from, what I see.
You know, I also think our view of how the fandom is expanding or declining in the analysis community might be a little skewed, because the analysis community has seen a large increase. I mean, not only with DrWolf saying, hey, everyone make analysis, but like our subscriber count alone has gone up substantially. Yes. So we're seeing influxes of people coming in like, oh yeah, I'm new to the fandom, I love this stuff. Other communities, like the musical community, might be in a severe downcline, and we might not even know it.
Yeah. That's the thing with the growing community, because I every now and then I check a few channels and the development on Social Blade, and even so, Digi is not really producing any more new content, or not a lot. He actually did a few videos in the last few weeks, but yeah, he's not really doing a lot content-wise. Sure, he has all his old videos, but his channel has still an average growth of 100 subscribers a day. And this is like, I mean, I had said months ago that I consider Digi's channel size the current ceiling, that he kind of hits the ceiling there, and he keeps growing with 100 a day, and even so he's not really doing anything. So this is also one of the clues I have for the fact that it is still growing, because what is still growing?
The analysis is certainly still growing, but that's our own group, isn't it? Like analysis has always been comparatively small compared to the hundreds of thousands who actually watched, you know, the most popular musical videos, but that may not be a fair comparison.
Music is more accessible, so everybody can do music. Oh, but yeah, I mean, Digi already got Saberspark, so Digi is now the biggest non-animator, non-musician brony. So the what I call a personality-driven channel. I believe he's the biggest one, except as long as there is not another one I kind of missed out on.
The biggest brony personality channel.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, that's a good name. Yeah. Yes,
well,
he is
certainly a musician is their own music and personality. You know.
Yeah, but they are not defined over their personality, but over their music usually.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can point to something with them like, I like their songs. I was watching DrWolf. It's like, I like how this dude thinks. Which is more of a personality trait.
Yeah. Though, I mean, it's kind of a weird thing, because you should more say, I like how this guy analyzes, or, you know, because he's doing a certain act in his videos, but we seem to forget that.
Yeah, but a lot of what makes DrWolf popular is just how he analyzes, not so much of what he actually analyzes at this point. Like, I remember one of his biggest videos was like Ages of the Main Six, and that kind of set him off with like thousands of views, and that was something where people could have been like, I like what this guy analyzes. I just almost said analyzes.
With the selling proposition, he got something unique that has nobody else done before. That's all it takes sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh, you also started out with the same premise, ANY.
I sure did.
Seriously, like when season 3 came out, that was when the conception of the now realized Brony analysis was created.
Hard to say. I mean, we had already in season 2, we had already Crepuscularity, Golden Fox, Paleo. Tommy started, I believe, in spring. Tommy started after season 2, so yeah, okay. Community-wise, it was really just there was an increase in analysis with season 3, and with Digi's shout out to everybody to start doing analysis. Yeah, everybody did start to do analysis. So yeah, this is probably he probably united the analysis. So
I don't know. I think more analysis were found. I mean, he brought the audience. He didn't necessarily be the great community organizer.
Yeah. We didn't even have a Skype group till a little bit a while ago, but
CBD has done more as a community pull together, because if you want to go to any channel to see just where all the analysts have gone to, it would be mine. I mean, sure, you don't need to subscribe, but you just go to the video and you see all the different names, and they're all analysts.
most of them, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I guess once again, has anybody some idea still untouched, some new spark for the conversation, because
it's only been an hour.
Yeah, but just stretching it out for an hour and a half if we
no point doing it longer. Yeah. I think we mostly concluded. I don't.
Oh, I believe Dr. Wolf has something.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of something. Let's see how long it lasts. I would say that in a hypothetical scenario, that Hasbro has announced that this generation of MLP will end at a certain date, one of these years, whenever that is. I could imagine that at that point, there would be enough bronies out there who are wanting new content from somewhere that they would actually start rallying behind a big fan-made project, some big fan-made movie, and would really want to work hard in getting that movie out in order to fill that need for something MLP related in the downtime. I could see that happening. There would certainly be a lot of people who would leave the fandom when the final episode of the final season comes around. But there would be more than enough people left behind who would want to see more content in some way, some form, that they would rally behind a big project like a movie, or perhaps even more than one project like other fan-made episodes. I could see that happening.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
It could happen. I mean, we already have fan-made episodes. It's the consistency of content. I think we already have fan-made episodes, and there certainly would be some after the show. I don't know how much productivity would be increased via the show ending. How these things still require a huge amount of time and effort and people coming together to make them. You know, there's a whole production line for each of them, but it depends when it ends as well, because some studios are getting better and better and better. The amount of communal art assets for the vectors is increasing, so the ability for people to make the show will increase with time. So the longer the show runs on for, and as long as it maintains an audience, the more likely there will be for more fan episodes, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe Flamingo, or what's his name, Zach, the guy behind Double Rainbow, pretty much made all the puppets and Racketeers open source. So This is
Zachary Rich.
Thank you. This guy. Also, there are projects somewhere in the works already, like I believe semi-real life animation thingy going on for My Little Dashie. At least there are this actually not bad looking trailers, which I could imagine will, if it not already gets produced during the while the show is still running, I guess that people will really get a new drive after it is over, like, okay, now we have to do it, we finish the project we already worked so long on. So I could imagine a final hype after the after it is over. Not sure if it is coming, but I could imagine that there is something like, yes, we go out with a boom, something like this, such a mentality. I could imagine.
Go out with a bang bang.
Yeah, with a big bang, that there will be some shortly after MLP is over, that there will be some kind of increase with paying tribute, getting all the long-term projects done, and yeah, after this, it is. I could see maybe also if animation software improves, that there will be, and the assets will become more, that maybe people will start some kind of webisodes, like on a regular basis, that each month there is a new 10-minute episode of the MLP webisode or something.
Yeah, I know there's one project coming out called the News Ponies that's going to be a regular thing.
Okay. Haven't heard of it. So.
Like an interest, they may all go out with a big bang, but the MLP community is not necessarily large enough to be entirely self-sustainable yet. Like, there is no musician who's aiming to become a entirely independent Brony musician, i.e., they make all their revenue through the Bronies. Like, DrWolf is certainly trying to make all of his revenue through videos, but he's the only one I can sort of think of that has sort of put his flag in the MLP game and will continue doing it after the show will end. Like, I don't think there's animation studios who are big enough to try and produce weekly content to ensure a large enough subscriber count and viewer count to bring in the ad revenue through YouTube or wherever.
Yeah, weekly content, not maybe, but there's definitely large enough studios, like Silly Philly Studios and Bogow Bronies are actually really big. They've got like over 100 people each. And that's quite a lot of people that are all really dedicated to doing stuff for the fandom and all these projects. They could easily make at least, they could make lesser videos each week, or they could supplement really big videos with lesser videos each week. So it's definitely possible for them to be sustainable as long as they do it correctly.
It depends also if they want to be sustainable. I mean, you have 100 people, they're not all going to be able to stake a fork in this and make a living out of it. They're all hobbyists, aren't they? And they're doing it in their spare time, and they'll continue doing it in their spare time. There may be enough inertia for it to continue, but it doesn't, it's what I'm saying. If you have an individual content producer who's getting all the revenue, he can actually make a job out of it. That he can have enough immersion.
Yeah. I guess it's not very likely for somebody who is exclusive, who produces exclusive Brony material. I don't see it soon. When they are capable of doing it of keeping the show interesting long enough that the Brony fandom is capable of overcoming the next threshold, that the audience, that we kind of leave the stigma as a deviation behind us and we actually reach mainstream status. If this happens, I can see it, but for this, the show has to really work hard and be able to sustain high quality for at least 2 or 3 more seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think now is the time to start wrapping things down, start closing things up?
I think so, unless DrWolf has anything. I'll stop.
I think I'm good.
Okay then.
Very good.
Unanimous agreement.
Right then, guys, that was Crepuscularity number 41, the future of the fandom. I hope you all enjoyed. Bye.
See you. Bye-bye.
Unova out.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having me.